Welcome to this special episode of our program Arab Affairs. Today will be dedicated for this very important international forum or industrial forum. The President inaugurated this morning. Industry has been given a certain priority, particularly at this very particular stage. Definitely the President has already given instruction of supporting industry for this upcoming stage in order to be able to sustain with our development or developmental agenda and goals. The President, during the inauguration, watched a number of projects of this National Initiative for Industrial Development, IBDA. The President also, during the forum, watched a documentary film on the historical reflection of economic crisis on the global economy and the success of the Egyptian economy in overcoming obstacles, especially during the recent period, through the policy of economic reform, which strengthened the ability to deal with the global changes without significant impact. The President also saluted some of the companies of the private sector for their efforts to increase workers' wages after the state's decision to raise the minimum wage and pay £300 as an exceptional bonus to face the price hikes. The President has directed to grant the golden license to all advanced companies for a period of 3 months in the context of supporting the Egyptian industry, and the state will then review the results of such a step. According to the license, investors will obtain state single approval that enables them to buy or rent lands, operate and manage the projects. The license also could be extended for additional 3 months in case of achieving progress. The President also gave his directives to the Governor of the Central Bank of Egypt to work on facilitating the procedures of obtaining quick loans for industrial projects, stressing the state readiness to contribute to the projects of IBDA initiative to boost industry. The aim of this conference is to identify the challenges that the national businessmen face and quickly provide solutions to overcome any obstacles in this regard. The Trade Minister reviewed steps taken to benefit from industrial complexes in all governorates, which include around 4,808 industrial units. Today we'll be speaking about the significance of this conference and its importance, particularly at the backdrop of several challenges occurring not just for Egypt but worldwide. To highlight the issue, we have with us over the phone His Excellency Ambassador Ayoub Mahmoud Ayoub, the former Plenipotentiary Trade Minister. Good afternoon to you. Hello? Hello? Your Excellency? Hello?
Yes.
Your Excellency, good afternoon to you. And we're speaking about this industrial forum that took place this morning, in which the President has attended and inaugurated. Let me see your reading to two important conferences being held consecutively.
The voice is not clear. Sorry for that. The voice is not clear.
I'll try to raise my voice.
Yes, please do.
Okay. So how do you view the importance of holding two consecutive conferences, the economic one and the industrial one as well?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes. Let me comment about the second one, which is industrial localization in Egypt, which is very important because it puts Egypt on the right course, which was badly needed. Egypt has established a very good and important infrastructure during the last, let's say, 5 or 6 years. This is not enough. What is needed, and this is what we have seen now, is the industrialization, or rather localization of industry in Egypt. When a conference is held on the heels of the economic conference, which was recently held this week, and it is presided by the president himself, this means that the state is keen to invigorate the Egyptian economy and develop it further in the direction which is vital to the livelihood of the Egyptian people. When we speak about industry, we know that 80% of gross national product of Egypt is from industry, and also over the same percentage of manpower is in working in industry. So it replaced agriculture as the main source of income and the main source of economic activity in this country. When we find that more than 500 organizations, companies, chief executive officers, and individuals, investors are coming to take part in this conference, this means that they are keen and they are sure that the state is serious about putting industry in its right place. Right place, I mean, is giving it a priority in its development process, and most importantly, in the laws which are recently promulgated by the government, and more importantly, and this will come later or should be on the heels, the regulations or the implementation of these laws, which is very important to the industry people, and they highlighted this part in their speeches in front of His Excellency the President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. Several industrials have spoken about what they have done, the manpower, the use, the production, joint venturing, and the working capital and exports. What is needed now, and what they were specific about what they want the government to do. And this is very important because when the president himself listens to the industry people, this means that a lot of a change will occur in the very near future, I will not say in the very coming days or coming weeks, but rather the president himself is keen to see that what they discussed and what they negotiated is put in practice, and industry takes its right place in the development of Egypt after the big infrastructure projects which was implemented during the last 6 or 7 years.
When we speak about industry, and we all know that the president has given his instructions for the government to facilitate and to support the industry, and that was ordered last month and even before. Why industry is given such a main priority at this very particular stage? Why it should be having facilities and should be focused on at this upcoming stage?
This is a very important and necessary question in this context. When we see that more than 80% of gross national product is the contribution of industry, this means that it is the first priority should be given to this sector. This is number one. Number two, we have seen the war, and we are seeing the war in Ukraine and the aftermath of the COVID-19, and many industries have been involved in other countries, and many markets, I'm very important and keen to explore all of the markets. Many markets are keen to import their needs. This means that there is a good opportunity for Egyptian industrial exports to replace the imports from other countries. So we speak about the manpower, 80%, its share in the gross national product, and its share in exportation. And what is more important now, we have seen it, the joint venturing, which many of our industries are beginning with foreign companies, means technology transfer, and at the same time increasing exports, and more importantly, increasing the local component in our exports. When we look about the interest, the chiefs of industry, which they have spoken in front of the president, the pharmaceutical, the pharmaceutical industries, the ash production, fodder, which is very important, compressors, air conditioners, electricity generators, or energy generators. These 8 industries, which I have mentioned now, are very important. It constitutes a big percentage of the potential, and Egypt has a very big potential as far as industry is concerned. Why? Because we have the components and inputs for these industries. When we say we have petrol and gas is a part of many industries which are export-oriented. This is one thing. Other thing, even in the deserts, when we see the silica or the sands, which we have in Sinai, which is quite suitable for many industries. More important is that now the European industries, with the lack of energy resources and the dangers and the uncertainties around this flow of supplies of energy to Europe, they are thinking of Egypt as a haven for a part of their production which is energy intensive. This means that Egypt has a very good opportunity to create or attract and lure these industries which are energy intensive, and that is why this economic conference and then the industry conference are very vital and important, especially at this timing, and more especially and more specifically when the president himself is presiding and listening to what they say and what they want, what they need, and what they not, and responding to it instantly. Prime Minister was present. The concerned ministers were there with the president himself. So all the hands who are playing, or the main players, were face to face and they listen to what is needed and what is required and how it can be done. And the shorter time is very important in this respect. When we have laws are not enough. What is important, what complementing laws is how it is regulations, that is how it is implemented. In this respect, I will kindly refer to the bureaucracy. Bureaucracy has to understand that the president himself and the prime minister are deeply concerned with what can be done to lure and encourage foreign industries to invest in Egypt.
Before I go to the challenges which is facing this very particular segment of the Egyptian economy, let me take 2 important things that you spoke about here. You spoke about the components or the local components that can really help the Egyptian industry, which we are trying to localize the components in order to be able to help our economy. How is this important, particularly at this stage, and how would that reflect on the Egyptian industry and at the same time the economy and the foreign reserves at the same time?
This is a very important part of the industrialization project process which Egypt is going through now. When we focus on certain industry, like for example pharmaceutical industry, when we see that more than chairman of companies is there and they are established a pharmaceutical industry city for pharmaceutics, and they are imported all the necessary equipment, and they are using the local ingredients or inputs to increase the percentage of the local component or local ingredients in the production. This means that by the time we are raising our contribution as far as local component is concerned, and at the time minimizing or lowering the imports from these raw materials or intermediary products to Egypt, and more importantly, increasing the prospects for exports of these products, whether for pharmaceutical or generators or solar panels or many other, in fact, or fodder or soda ash to other countries and who are keen to import from Egypt. There is a certain consideration you have to look. Egypt has more or let's say many bilateral and multilateral trade agreements with all the countries of Africa, whether as countries mutual, bilateral, or as organizations. So this means that the markets are open for the Egyptian exports, and what we need to do, this is our homework, increase the local production, the local percentage, and increase the quantity available for exports, because in many cases, I have been posted to several African countries, in many cases we find that the demand of the foreign countries is increasing, and you have to cope with it. In many cases we find that we need to establish factories designed for export only. Will I say that? For export only, and in many countries can do that, but Egypt has the advantage, relative advantage and comparative advantage as far as industry is concerned, and as far as access to foreign markets in the Egyptian and the African continent or other countries. And we cannot ignore the fact that Egypt by itself is a big market with more than 100 million consumers. This is the best haven to create industry and develop industry, and this is why this conference was here. Localization of industry was convened and presided by the president himself, and prime minister were there to support and to implement what was promised during the conference.
Ambassador Ayub, we're speaking here about decreasing the gap between our exportation and importation, and that definitely will reflect on our economy enormously. When we speak about industry or when we speak about our investments in industry, at a certain time we have focused on the energy and real estate industries. Now the president and the government, the leadership is focusing on other sectors of industries. What opportunities do we have to open investments in industry? What should we be focusing, or what should be our priorities, or the industries that should be priorities at this upcoming stage?
Will I say the priority number one is investing in new industries and investing in energy-intensive industries, which is a lucrative market for the mainly European industries to come to Egypt and invest in Egypt. So investment is very important, or let us say it is a shifting of focus from real estate and infrastructure, which was completed now, and the excellent one, and congratulate the government for it, and shifting on a more dynamic and lucrative sector, this is called industry. Industry, there are several aspects of industry which Egypt has a relative advantage in, and luckily the president himself is keen to see results within the next few months or years, so that we can feel it. When we focus, for example, on pharmaceutical industry, we are importers of industry, of pharmaceutical industries and of drugs and medicines, and now we are raising the local component, and we can import. It is called import substitution, which is very important. This is just an example. If we look to the fodder, also, it is a very important, and now they are establishing monophosphate, calcium monophosphate factory for the production of fodder. This calcium monophosphate is very important as a main component in the production of fodder. So a focus is, we are seeing now a focus in the industries which are badly needed, either for import substitution or for exports. And exports, the sky is the ceiling, as we say, as far as exports is concerned. And we initiated, the president himself initiated this process, and I'm expecting that we see good and positive and tangible and numerical results during the next, let's say, 12 months. I will not say 1 year, but rather 12 months. We will see results very soon, because the president is keen to see the figures, comparative figures between 2 years or 2 semesters or so on. So we are keen to increase the exports, and the president himself, why we say increase exports? Because we all know that our imports is double our exports. So there is a trade gap or trade deficit, we call it, and we need to minimize the deficit and reach the goal of $100 billion of export during the next, let's say, 6 or 7 years.
Yes, indeed, particularly that this has a huge burden on the Egyptian foreign reserves, which also reflects on our economy at large. When we speak about opportunities, existing opportunities, particularly in industry, during the past years, we have been seeing the leadership and the government preparing a conducive atmosphere and preparing the ground for industries, for investments for industries to come. I mean, here we're not just speaking about roads and highways and bridges and all that, but we are also speaking about many of the industrial complexes, and around 4,808 industrial units. The president also spoke about different opportunities, the latest of which was the black sand, in which he inaugurated recently or last week. What opportunities do industrial people have in Egypt? What should be focused on at this upcoming stage? How important is the IT industries at this upcoming stage also?
The joint venturing and the local investments are very important in this process. When they say local investment, this means that the government has established highways and completed the infrastructure, and this was necessary for joint venturing or any industry to be established or to be transferred to Egypt. When we see that the Egyptian people and the industries and the financier or investors are coming and creating a new haven for their industry in Egypt, this at the same time encourages foreign companies for joint venturing, and you have seen a good part of it, or good results in the very last couple of years. They are coming to invest, and we have seen that the laws which were promulgated are quite promising and quite encouraging for the foreign investors to come and invest in Egypt, and many facilities were given to them, even they were exempted from the taxes for several years, and this will encourage both local investors, Arab investors, and foreign investors to come and invest in specific industries. The government has established, has created, has aired and said we need industry in these several sectors. And when they say the several sectors, like 10 or 12 sectors, they give details about what is exactly is needed in each and every project. When you rightly mentioned now, 4,808 projects were established. This means that there's activity, there's dynamism in the Egyptian economy that enables the foreign investors. I am always focusing on investment because it's vital for the Egyptian economy. Our local resources by itself, it is good, but I will say it is not enough to create, to cope with the ambitions of the president.
Yes, I have only 1 minute here. I guess I have to go to the Adhan right now for the prayers. Your Excellency Ambassador Ayoub Mahmoud Ayoub, former Plenipotentiary Trade Minister, we thank you so much for being with us and for your great input here. Now we go to the Adhan for prayers and we'll come back.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آت سيدنا محمدا الوسيلة والفضيلة والدرجة الرفيعة وابعثه اللهم المقام المحمود الذي وعدته. وصلى الله وسلم على سيدنا مولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.
Welcome back, and to end up this issue or the conclusion of the forum, President Sisi has already given his instructions for the cabinet to simplify procedures related to the industrial investments and remain in touch or in contact with the community of the businessmen with the aim of facilitating all the procedures and identify the challenges that the national businessmen face and quickly find solutions for them. These were very important steps in order to create a real conducive atmosphere for investments, particularly in the industry. To end up with, during the last week, or particularly during the past few days, Egypt has been holding 3 days in celebration for the 50 years anniversary of diplomatic relations with the United Arab Emirates. 50 years of collaboration, 50 years of brotherly relations, 50 years of very strong relations. We'll leave you now with this report, and next Saturday will be another important Arab file. Until then, goodbye.
President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi delivered a speech on the occasion marking 50 years since Egypt and the United Arab Emirates established relations. In his speech to a celebration held under the slogan Egypt and the United Arab Emirates, One Heart, President el-Sisi hailed the distinguished and strong ties that bind the two brotherly Arab nations throughout times as a role model to follow. The head of state further praised the real and sincere values of their friendship, as well as UAE stances that support Egypt during the past years, noting that their ties depend on respect and cordiality. The head of state expressed Egypt's keenness to broaden the already distinguished ties with the aim of serving interests of the two nations, those of Arab countries, saying Egypt is proud with those great ties since the times of the UAE founder Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan, passing through UAE leaders until the reign of Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, as well as Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, the UAE deputy head of state. He said that throughout the ages and with successive governments and leaderships, bilateral ties remain strong and close, referring to economic and investment cooperation in all fields and horizons of comprehensive collaboration. The President thanked the United Arab Emirates for its great stance towards Egypt 10 years ago during a critical time and the country was passing through, which he said reflected the special ties that bind the two countries. Addressing the attendees, the Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli spoke about the continuous cooperation between Egypt and the UAE and their efforts to consolidate Arab countries and achieve their interests. He referred to their identical points of view and consensus regarding many Arab and international issues. He referred to the Egyptian-Emirati strategic partnership and UAE investments in many projects in Egypt, adding that Cairo is looking forward to broadening cooperation in various domains. The Minister of Planning, Hala Said, also addressed the gathering, saying the two countries have expanded cooperation in different fields. For his part, the UAE Minister of Ministerial Affairs Council, Mohammed Al-Karkawi, also addressed the gathering, hailing bilateral ties in addition to the two nations' efforts to serve Arab causes. Also in his speech, the Arab League Secretary General, Ahmed Abul Ghait, spoke about Arab ties and efforts underway to consolidate Arab solidarity and achieve security and stability. Abul Ghait referred to the two countries' keenness to enhance joint Arab action and defend Arab interests, especially in times of crisis. The Arab League chief confirmed the great potential of relations between Egypt and the UAE as a distinguished model for relations between any two countries. He added the Arab League is the first winner of this model of relations, as the League is a large umbrella that includes all forms of cooperation between member states.